What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WrestleRant, where every single week I, Graham Jason Matthews, break down all the pay-per-views that I watch on the WWE Network as well as on the Global Wrestling Network, which is where today's pay-per-view comes from, TNA Slammiversary 2005. And quite honestly, in the short time I've been talking about these TNA pay-per-views, the 04 shows, the 05 shows, I think the last one I talked about, which was, I believe, Lockdown. Maybe it was Hard Justice. I believe it was Hard Justice. Lockdown was the month before that. Lockdown was amazing. I don't remember much about Hard Justice. I know it had its moments. This was one of, if not the best TNA pay-per-view I've seen up to this point. And that's saying maybe not a lot, just because a lot of these early installments of the TNA pay-per-views, at least from what I noticed, had a lot of like LOL TNA moments that you kind of came to expect by that point, but like a lot of overbooking, awful matches, feuds people just did not care about. This show didn't have that at all. This show had a lot of great matches, a lot of great moments, and it came at just the right time for TNA for their biggest show of the year, one of their biggest shows of the year, Slammiversary 2005, which is essentially their SummerSlam. I thought they really delivered an awesome show here from start to finish. We kick things off with a six-way X Division match, pitting Shark Boy against Delirious, Elix Skipper, Jarrell Clark, I have no idea who the hell that guy is. Zach Gowen, another notable name. And Amazing Red. Shark Boy, for whatever reason, emerged victorious here. I'm not even really sure why. I think anyone would have been a better choice, but thankfully the match was fun. It was good. It was a very fitting way of opening the show. The crowd was into it. Fast-paced, short and sweet as it should have been at almost 6 minutes in length. This was good. Exactly what you would expect from the X Division. Speaking of the X Division, we had another X Division outing after that, pitting Alex Shelley against Shocker, the guy from the fucking McDonald's commercial that they won't stop talking about. Literally every freaking TNA pay-per-view I watch, they cannot stop talking about the fact that this guy Shocker was in a famous McDonald's commercial. Well, I've never seen it, so why the hell would I care? But beyond that, the guy's a really, really good worker. He had an awesome match here with Alex Shelley. Alex Shelley is really one of the most underrated performers I think in the modern era of wrestling. I know he kind of made it big in TNA as a former X Division champion and World Tag Team champion alongside Chris Sabin and Kushida in New Japan and Ring of Honor and TNA. But he just recently retired from the ring. He might be back at some point. I think he got injured and he might be doing medical stuff, medical school. I think that was one half of the Wolves too. Not Eddie Edwards, but the other guy. Davey Richards. I think he wanted to start up his own wrestling school or something. I'm not exactly sure, but just seeing this match really made me realize how great of a performer he actually is. But this was very fun. Very, very fun match. Great showing from both guys. Shocker in the end picking up the victory about 10 minutes in. Just a real good wrestling match. Which cannot be said for the next match of the Outlaw, a.k.a. Billy Gunn, a.k.a. Kip James, or whatever the fuck he was calling himself at this point, taking on Ron the Truth Killings, R-Truth. Not really that good of a match. These two had been teasing tension, feuding for a while in TNA after having their on-again, off-again alliance. This really was not any good at all. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't awful, but it really was not that good whatsoever for the time they were given, about 7 minutes. Ron Killings won, and that was about it. This really was a glorified waste of time. But thankfully, the one upside about this was that it didn't drag on too long. The story did, the feud did. This match didn't, thankfully. And also, it was the only below-average match on the entire show, which is great. We had a tag team match after that, pitting Team Canada against the Naturals. Real fun stuff here. Very, very good tag team match. It wasn't amazing, but it was good for what it was. Enjoyable affair here. They've had better matches before from what I've seen in the past and in the future as well. Really, the only purpose this matchup served was to set up the TNA debut of Jimmy Hart. So I'm not exactly sure what the point of the actual match was. Having Jimmy Hart in the corner of the Naturals may have been a better way of promoting the pay-per-view. But having Jimmy Hart come out at the end and having the Naturals win, who were obviously paying tribute to the late, great Chris Candido by this point, having Jimmy Hart interfere in the ending just to help them win the match seemed pretty pointless. I don't remember too many TNA moments with Jimmy Hart over the course of the company's history, but it was a fine way to finish off the match and give the baby faces the victory. I really like the next match, the TNA debut of Samoa Joe taking on Sanjay Dutt, the first ever appearance of Samoa Joe in TNA wrestling. This was awesome. As great of a debut as you'll see. A glorified squash match. Dutt got in some offense, but really, it was a one-sided affair for Samoa Joe to have him get in his shit. Looked great in victory here. The guy looked really, really good. And I really, really appreciated how Samoa Joe was also made out to feel like a big deal thanks to Mike Tenay on commentary, who played up his accomplishments in Ring of Honor and New Japan and doing this and that, going undefeated for almost 3 years, suffering only one loss. I don't know if this is true or not. I know he went undefeated in TNA for a long time. I'm not sure if this factoid is true or not, but they said that he went undefeated. He only suffered one loss over the course of 3 years between Ring of Honor, New Japan, and a few other promotions, so which is pretty insane. But still, I thought this was a great way to introduce Samoa Joe into the TNA fold, coming across like a big star on night one, and got all of his, signature offense and got to showcase his skills. This was awesome. One of the better debuts in TNA's history, from what I've seen anyway. Bobby Roode taking on Lance Hoyt up next. Decent match. Again, a feud I really didn't care too much about. It was what it was. Lance Hoyt really wanted to get his hands on Scott D'Amore. He couldn't. He lost here. Scott D'Amore was the one who cost him the victory in the end. Bobby Roode winning the match as he should have. Wasn't too bad. Again, only about 7 minutes in length, around the, same amount of time that Ron Killings and the Outlaw got, that Billy Gunn got. They were, again, it was okay. It wasn't terrible. It was better than Killings and Outlaw, but it wasn't anything memorable by any stretch. But it served its purpose in furthering the feud between Lance Hoyt and Scott D'Amore and giving Bobby Roode a victory on pay-per-view. Next match was America's Most Wanted taking on 3 Live Crew, BG James and Conan. This was okay. It wasn't great by any stretch at all. I've seen much better matches from America's Most Wanted throughout the other TNA pay-per-views I've seen, but this wasn't bad by any means. It kind of really existed to serve as a platform to further the tension with Conan and BG James and a few others, so it wasn't terrible. For whatever reason, I thought it was for the tag team titles. I forgot to mention that before. The Naturals and the Team Canada match was for the NWA World Tag Team titles. The Naturals retained in that match. This match was not for the Tag Team Championships. I completely forgot about that. But yeah, America's Most Wanted won this, as they should have. Decent match, but nothing too great. A 3-way elimination match for the TNA X Division Championship. Christopher Daniels beating Chris Sabin here. Awesome match. Christopher Daniels, Chris Sabin, and Michael Shane, I should say. All 3 parties having just amazing showings, working really, really well together, having tremendous chemistry. Again, exactly what you would expect from the X Division at this point in time, but fast-paced. They got a ton of time, and they kick off the show with I don't want to say the throwaway X Division guys, but the guys that weren't really doing anything at that point. They saved the bigger names for later on in the show, like Daniels, like Sabin. I'm not all too familiar with Michael Shane, but he looked good here. It came down to Daniels and Sabin, as it should have. They played up the elimination stipulation really, really well. I thought this entire thing was just an absolute blast. And they kept the interference with Tracy and a few others to an absolute minimum, which I also really, really appreciated. Again, Daniels continuing to deliver great match after great match on all these TNA pay-per-views. And I got to give this 2 thumbs up. Daniels retaining the title in the end once again. The main event, a King of the Mountain match for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. AJ Styles, the defending champion, coming into this, taking on Abyss, Monty Brown, Sean Waltman, and Raven. Waltman replaced Jeff Jarrett, who was supposed to be in the match, getting his rematch for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship after dropping it at the previous pay-per-view. He was arrested earlier on in the week. I'm not sure if that was a shoot or if it was kayfabe. I looked it up briefly. I couldn't find anything, so I have no idea. But Waltman did replace Jarrett in this match, which was probably for the better. Waltman had a good showing here. Monty Brown was good. AJ was obviously awesome. Abyss was good. Raven was great. Raven was really the one pegged to win the championship here, cutting promos throughout the show about how he was destined to become the NWA World Champion. Ended up winning it in the end. The King of the Mountain matches are really kind of a clusterfuck, to be honest. The rules are all ass backwards. It's really confusing. Putting that aside, this was either one of, if not the best King of the Mountain match I've ever seen at TNA, if only for the crowd involvement and all the just the pure showings, the awesome showings that all 5 of these guys had. Just the pure athleticism and the excitement and the entertainment surrounding the in-ring action. Stuff like that. That's what made this bearable and less confusing than I thought it would be. putting aside the dumbass rules, I thought it was a really, really entertaining and must-see main event with a great finish. I mean, cutting short AJ Styles' reign as NWA World Champion in about a month was kind of disappointing, but Raven really was the one the crowd wanted to see win here, and in the end he did, becoming the new NWA World Champion and closing out the show on a high note, making the match, and more so the show, more important than it probably would have been had he not won the championship here at the end. But that closed out a great Slammiversary show. Again, not every match was a home run. America's Most Wanted, 3 Live Crew, the Naturals, or not that match, but Bobby Roode and Lance Hoyt, Ron Killings and the Outlaw, all decent matches. Thankfully, nothing truly terrible like we tend to get on these TNA shows. The first 2 matches were a lot of friggin' fun. The Naturals and Team Canada, very good match for the World Tag Team Championship. Samoa Joe debuted, which was great, obviously, very memorable moment. The X Division Championship match, the 3-way was tremendous, and the main event was great as well. Way better than I thought it would be. So, got to give the show 2 thumbs up. Be sure to check it out on the Global Wrestling Network, TNA Slammiversary 2005. So, I believe my next WrestleRant video next week will be talking about, if I'm not mistaken, Battleground 2017, one of the worst pay-per-views I've ever seen in my 10 years as a WWE fan. So we're talking all about that, I believe. Don't take me for my word for that. Don't take my word for that, because they might be wrong. Looking at the lineup, I forgot already, but I'm pretty sure it's Battleground 2017. So until then, guys, be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more content. Till next time, guys, I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Have an awesome rest of your week, and I'll catch your ass down the road.